And so now, it's my great honour and pleasure to introduce to you somebody who will take us on that final step, deliver for us a Labour government across the UK, and to introduce to you the next Prime Minister of Britain, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you all for being here, and there'll be no rain for a few minutes. Thanks for coming, thanks for all you do for the party, and thanks for your enthusiasm for what we're going to do in the future. Thank you for the great support you gave to Mary Griffith Clark in the election campaign. I'm really sorry we didn't quite make it, but nobody could have worked harder than her to try and bring about the result we all wanted and needed here. So, let's get ready to do it all again as soon as the time is picking, and make sure we get a Labour MP returned here in this constituency. And I thank Corbyn for what he just said, and for leading Welsh Labour, and for the way in which a Labour government in Wales makes a difference in education, a difference in health, a difference in housing, and a difference in opportunities. But it also needs a UK Labour government to work with a Welsh Labour government to ensure that Wales gets the resources that it so desperately needs. And as the good socialist he is, Corbyn is helping out the Guardian photographer to make sure no mishap occurs. Are you all right up there? I'm worried about you. We care for everybody in the Labour Party. And Sean's a good friend. And I want to thank Christina Rees as our Shadow Welsh Secretary for the work she does campaigning in the general election and in this summer of campaigning that we're doing. And the voice for Wales that she brings to the Shadow Cabinet, and the voice for Wales she will bring to a Labour Cabinet as soon as we have that general election. And I want to thank my good friend Albert Owen for coming over this afternoon. Albert, thanks very much for being here. Thanks for what you do, and congratulations on your own result, because we know the results we gained in Wales and across the whole of the UK were hard fought and well deserved where we gained seats. We've got other battles to fight to win, and that's why we're doing this summer of campaigning. But before I say a bit more about that, let me just reflect for a moment on the general election campaign. All of you here worked hard, all of you here supported Labour, all of you here did everything you could. But you remember, when Theresa May decided to call the general election, remember what all the experts in the broadsheet papers, all those late night TV chat shows, and all the popular press were saying about us, about Labour, about our opportunities, about our chances, the way we were being consistently written off by all those who thought they knew what was happening. They forgot a number of things. One is that the Tories and Lib Dems have imposed austerity on the whole of the UK. Real wages have fallen, living standards have fallen. There are more people homeless than there have been for many, many years. More poverty than there's been for many years. More food banks than there's been for very many years. Austerity hits hardest on those who deserve it the least, and hits least hardest on those that deserve to pay the price of the banking crisis of 2008-9. And so we launched the general election campaign knowing that was the background, but a number of things happened. One was lots of people joined in getting people to register to vote in the election. All of you that helped with that, thank you very much. That got students registered, that got people that never registered before, got people who'd been missed off the register for some reason or other. 2 million names were added to the register in only a few weeks. That was because of the work of so many people. Thank you all very much for giving them the democratic opportunity to express their view and vote in that election. And shortly into the campaign, we launched our manifesto, for the many, not the few. I'm very proud of that book, very proud of that document, and very proud of the work that went into it. It was written in only 2 weeks, because that's all the time we had to do it. And it changed the whole debate. It changed the debate because, for once in an election, we were clearly offering something very different, an alternative view of society, an alternative view of the economy, something that resonated with the desires and wishes of people to be able to live their lives in security and provide for the next generations education, health, housing and pensions, that challenged the narrative that somehow or other an advanced economy is one based on injustice, inequality and obscene levels of personal wealth for a tiny minority of the population whilst the rest suffer. So in challenging that, we put forward something very, very different. And we did our campaign in 2 parts. One was by bypassing a lot of what the printed media was saying about us. We used social media. You all, I'm sure, use social media at some time. So I want to say a big thank you to all those late night cyber warriors that hit your keyboards. You'd finished the day leafleting, you'd done your canvassing, and then you went home, you missed out the pub, and went home and hit your keyboards or used your phones in order to challenge argument and challenge debate. I followed a lot of those debates. Very interesting, absolutely fascinating. And that then spilt over into a narrative of popular debate. Buses, clubs, trains, everywhere. People were talking about the issues in the election. The one thing the Tories didn't want was a popular discussion and popular debate, which is presumably why the Prime Minister felt unable to attend a debate with everybody else. Strange way of approaching an election where you're not prepared to have a debate. Quite odd, actually. We did something... Well, no, we don't do personal politics, it's all right. There was noises off just now. What we did, though, was took the campaign out all over the country. We did 100 events in the election campaign. We did bigger and bigger meetings and rallies, and we did lots of smaller meetings and discussions. They happened all over the country, and on the last day of the election we had that mammoth 6 rallies from Scotland to Wales to London, including a wonderful one on the beach nearby that day. Some of you, I'm sure, were there that day. We mobilised so many people, and in the result of the election we put on 3 million votes for Labour, biggest increase in the vote for the Labour Party than at any time since 1945. And that was an achievement for all of us, uniting together to try and achieve something different in our society. We didn't quite win the election, that I fully acknowledge. I fully understand we didn't quite win the election, and I'm very sorry about that. And we gave the Tories an opportunity straight after the election to atone for some of their sins. There's a lot of time needed to atone for all their sins, but for some of them. During the campaign, they were weeping crocodile tears about the plight of public sector workers, about hospital workers, about doctors, about paramedics, about firefighters, about just about everybody. And we thought we'd give them an opportunity to do something practical. It's all very well praising firefighters and paramedics who did such wonderful work after the bombing in Manchester, after the attack on London Bridge, after Grenfell Tower, after the attack in my own constituency in Finsbury Park. It's all very well praising them then, but freezing their pay, making health workers accept a 14% pay cut, underfunding our public services, underfunding fire services, particularly in England, then what is the answer? They had the chance to lift the public sector pay cap and allow the unions to negotiate freely with the employers on wages and conditions. They and the DUP voted it down in Parliament. We will take the issue back, and we will keep on challenging on this, because fundamentally the problems are of underfunding, low pay and poverty in modern Britain. And so we will keep up that battle. And I thought it was important that this summer we go round constituencies all over the UK, giving that message out that as a party we are 575,000 members and rising. We're the biggest we've been in my lifetime, and we're getting bigger all the time, because we have that determination and that confidence of what we're about, our principles as a movement and as a party. And we're going to carry on doing that. And so I'm campaigning all over the country this summer, and next week we're doing 5 days touring in Scotland with rallies all over Scotland. And well done Scottish Labour on the gains they made. Well done Welsh Labour on the gains they made. Well done English Labour on the gains they made. We have a lot to be proud of that election result. And it's the issues we now have to face. The economic questions facing this country are many, are complex, and are very important. First of all, the negotiations with the European Union have to be that we gain tariff-free trade access to the European market in order to protect jobs. We respect the result of the referendum, but we're absolutely determined to maintain jobs and maintain a sensible, serious trade relationship with Europe, and the rights of EU nationals to remain here and be joined by families here, and that we do not set up what the Tories have threatened to do, some kind of bargain basement, tax haven, Panama style on the shores of Europe. We have a different vision for this country and a different view of the way the world will be in the future. But it also means that we have to do a lot about economic issues in Britain. We don't invest enough. We've allowed manufacturing industry across the whole of the UK to decline. There has not been enough public investment compared particularly to Germany or to France or many other countries. Instead, there has to be an investment-led strategy, which is why John McDonnell and his team put forward the plans for a national investment bank that would be an investment bank all over the UK, working with the Welsh Government on a Welsh investment bank that would be there to support the development of new jobs, new industries and sustainable economics all over the country. It's a Labour government that intervenes to support industry that is so necessary and so wanted. When the crisis hit the steel industry in Wales, as it did in England and Scotland, the Welsh Government was quite prepared, able and happy to intervene and help and support the industry. Where was the Westminster Government? Where were the Tories on this? They allowed Redcar to close. They didn't show any great appetite for doing anything to defend our steel industry. If you don't have a steel industry, you don't have much of a basis for a manufacturing economy of any sort. And so that investment bank would ensure there is fairness of investment all across the UK. At the moment it is not fair at all. Far too much goes into London and the South East, far too little goes into Wales, Scotland and the north of England. A regionally based bank in England and nationally based investment banks in Scotland and Wales would make an enormous difference, and that is what we're determined to do. But an economy isn't just about investment and new industries, it's also about how the wealth is created. Who actually creates the wealth? Those who work. Those who work in those industries and work in those jobs. There has been a reduction in real terms in wages. There has been an erosion of workers' rights all across the UK, and we as a country are actually in breach of International Labour Organization conditions. I find that shameful. I find that wrong. And so, on May Day, Becky Long-Bailey proposed a workers' charter, which is 20 points. I won't read them all to you. But, crucially, they were rights at work, rights to be represented at work, and rights to join a trade union and be represented by that union, an independent union, from day one of your employment. And an end to 0 hours contracts and the insecurity that they bring. And the introduction of a living wage of £10 an hour for the whole country. These things, to me, are essential and important. And using public sector procurement powers to challenge the gender pay gap, which is still around 20% in most companies, industries and services, and use those procurement powers to make sure that those companies that we do business with do recognise trade unions, do have apprenticeships, do pay properly, and do have good working conditions. That is using our taxpayers' money for procurement for the public good. That surely is a power that we can and should be using, and we will do so. And it's also about investing in what we all need. The National Health Service is the greatest achievement of the Labour Party by any stretch of the imagination. It was Aneurin Bevan's great gift to us as the Health Minister in the post-war time. And he gave it to us as a National Health Service. He gave it to us as health as a human right, free at the point of need. And it's something that is something I'm very, very proud of. Every child that's born is given an NHS number at the time of birth, free healthcare for the rest of their lives. But unfortunately, the pressures of this government are to privatise health, particularly in England, to allow the private sector to get more and more involved in the NHS, and even allow companies to take over NHS contracts that themselves siphon off their profits to tax havens somewhere else around the world. I'm sorry, something doesn't ring right here to me. We pay our taxes to get a health service here, and I want to see that apply in England as well as what we're trying to achieve here in Wales. But it's also about other aspects of healthcare. The mental health crisis that's facing all of us in this country. A quarter of us are going to have some kind of mental health crisis, deep depression, or in need of help during our lifetime. We can't ignore it. We can't wish it away. We can look at the causes, but we can also look at the social attitudes, the stigma that's too often attached to mental health, and end that stigma and support those people that need our help and support during the times of a crisis that they are facing. Because that is what we're about as a party and as a movement. And the other area is, of course, the social care crisis. Across England, there's 1 million people waiting for social care needs. We need proper funding in Wales and Scotland to ensure that social care needs are met. We need the principle of a national social care service that ensures that social care is available. If it's not, two things happen. One is people who should not be in hospital remain in hospital too long, therefore they're occupying a bed that somebody else needs, therefore they're open to hospital-acquired infections because they're there. And secondly, if the care is not available outside of hospital, somebody has to give up work, give up what they're doing in order to care for them. And it's nearly always women who lose their jobs and lose their careers in order to care for those who need that help and support. So it is about empowerment of people, and certainly in the election campaign the Tories made a right hash of that. We would put money straight into the social care system to deal with those issues. But it's also about all the other aspects of people's lives, and aspects of education. I want all children to be able to get to and have access to, for 30 hours a week, nurseries and preschool facilities together, growing up together, understanding each other together. They're therefore likely to do much better in primary school and fund our primary schools and secondary schools properly. And for those going on to college or adult education or university, again, the Welsh Government doing everything it can to ensure that everyone gets the chance to go to college or university. The Tories have their way. Fees would not be capped at £9,000 a year. They'd go up and up and up, deterring the next generation from going on to college or university. Somebody said to me, well, this idea really is very expensive. Yes, it is. I accept that, and I accept that we're prepared to tax the very wealthiest and biggest corporations in order to pay for it. But it's also about ideas and aspirations. Aspirations for all of us to achieve things together, because that is what the Labour Party is about. communities coming together, being strong together and achieving things together. And that's what we put forward in the election campaign, and that's what had that incredible resonance. Those terrible events that happened, I mentioned Manchester, I mentioned London, mentioned what happened in my own area, and the awful event that happened in Barcelona, and those that have sadly been killed in Barcelona. Those people that committed those atrocities did so in order to promote division within our communities, to promote racism, to promote Islamophobia, to promote discrimination against minorities within our society. There is only one answer to what those people have done, and the only answer is one that the people of Barcelona showed on the streets of their great city last night, what the people of Manchester showed in Albert Square straight after the atrocity in Manchester. Come together as communities in strength and recognise diversity is our strength, and we oppose those people for what they are, what they say and what they do. We are not going to be divided. We're not going to allow these people to divide us or bring about a culture of hatred within our societies, because that is what they want us to do, and we're not going to do it. I want a Labour government to be elected so that the young people of our society have real faith and optimism and hope for their future, that they will get the education they need and deserve, they will have the opportunity for the creative industries and creative ideas in schools of music, of dance, of theatre, and that a Labour government would invest in those industries as well. And that they won't forever have to listen to the lectures from the economists that tell us the overall trend in the world is that forget about the provision of public health, forget about the provision of public housing, forget about the provision of public education, and certainly forget about pensions, that somehow or other in the 21st century, in the world richer than it's ever been at any time in history, somehow or other we can't afford the public services that those that founded our party strive to achieve for all of us. Well, I say it's time to call. We've got to call time on the politics and economics of austerity. We've got to call time on the politics of redistribution of wealth in favour of the wealthiest and most powerful at the expense of the majority and the poorest within our society. That was the message of the election campaign, and also a message that's there in the United States in the campaign that Bernie Sanders mounted and got so many millions of votes, and there in other parts of the world as well, including many parts of Europe. So we're actually on the side of history, we're on the side of the resurgence of popular, democratic, socialist, social justice politics. That is what we're about. But it's also facing up to the issues of the world. We live with greater pollution, we live with greater levels of emissions, we live with greater pollution of our seas and threats to our natural world and natural environment. The climate change talks that years ago in Kyoto, where John Prescott did such a good job, previous to that Montreal Convention, and most recently the Paris Climate Change Agreement, was an important step forward of recognising the limits to what you can do to one planet which we all want to live on, and we want our children and grandchildren to live on as well. And so a Labour government would not be afraid to pick up the phone to Donald Trump and say, sorry, you are wrong. You are wrong on the climate change accords. You are wrong on your approach to these issues. And so we have the chance of a Labour government that would be serious about environmental protection, as it would be serious about social justice and opportunities within our own society. And again, would pursue an international and foreign policy that would put human rights, democracy and peace at the heart of its policy, not one of blaming refugees for the plight they're in when they did not cause the wars which they are fleeing from. And so our party has this great opportunity. We didn't quite make it in the general election, but we take the fight out to the Tories in every part of the country. We take the fight out day to day in campaigning, in elections, but also in campaigning on the issues that we care about, on the issues of poverty, of homelessness, of injustice, recognising the great desire and wish of people in every community to do something about the plight they're in. Closing your doors and ignoring it, shouting at the television, pretending it's going to go away if you wish it away, won't work. It's very satisfying to shout at the television screen when you don't agree with it, but it doesn't actually make a lot of difference. You might get really angry and throw something at the screen, in which case it gets very expensive. So I don't recommend that either. What I do recommend is that spirit of open debate and discussion, that spirit of open debate and campaigning does make an enormous difference. Since the election, the narrative of the political debate has changed a great deal. It's no accident the Tories took their manifesto off their website. It's no accident they forgot about their plan to change the rules on fox hunting because they decided that wasn't actually very popular in 21st century Britain, to return to something that originates in the 18th century or probably earlier. I mean, I'm talking of Rees-Mogg here. He tends to be somebody that goes back a bit in history. And so we have changed that debate. We have changed those opportunities. And it's up to us to keep up that campaigning so that as this government tries to buy support from the DUP, they can find £1 billion for DUP projects in Northern Ireland. They can't find a penny for anybody anywhere else. They can only find money to buy them off. And I know those 10 DUP MPs are utterly brilliant people, I've no doubt about that, but I sometimes think that footballers valued at £100 million are a bit overpriced. Oh goodness, £100 million for each DUP MP, that is really going some. Not one of them can kick a ball like Ronaldo or anybody else. They're really just not up to that mark at all. They're going to have to call time on their coalition with the DUP, and another election will come along. We're not going to wait for that election to start our campaigning. We're already out there doing that campaigning, mobilising people, uniting people, bringing people together in hope and opportunity for a future that belongs to the young people, that belongs to a society that cares for people at both ends of the age spectrum and recognises the human worth and human value of everybody. I don't want to live in a country where those in work have to go to a food bank in order to feed themselves. I don't want to live in a country where children go to school hungry because of the poverty of their parents. I don't want to live in a country where older people who've made such a massive contribution to all of our lives end up poor and lonely and largely forgotten. I don't want to live in a country that discriminates against women because they happen to be born in the 1950s and lose out on the pension. I want to live in a society that genuinely is proud to care for all, and a government that has those values, those principles, those socialist values at the very heart of everything that it does. Our party is there, ready and waiting. We are here, ready and waiting. We're united and very, very determined. So I say to Theresa May, bring it on! We're ready for it. We'll have the election and we will win here. We will win all over Wales, we'll win in England, and we'll win in Scotland.